G'day guys and welcome back to your English Aussie. Boy, have we got a lot of great content for you today. We're going to start with some tactical observations of all the games this game week so far. Note I'm recording this just before the Newcastle-West Ham game. We're then going to go on to talk through the stats for the players and transfer plans for game week 13. And we're going to even go through the transfer that I have already made this game week, an early transfer to try and account for some price rises later in the week. We're going to start off with a run through of this week's fixtures so far, what I've seen and what it looks like going forwards, who the key players might be coming out of it. First, we'll start with one of the most incredible games of the game week, was Man City versus Tottenham. And I do have my game week 12 predictions on the right here. I did predict both teams to score, but who was to see Tottenham winning 4-0 at the Etihad? Pep Guardiola losing another game in a row. And City really just looked tired in the game. It looks like they had played a lot of minutes. A lot of their players had played a lot of minutes. They were lacking legs in transition in the midfield. And that is where Spurs are at their most dangerous. So although we did think that Spurs' attacking style would play into the way that City like to attack, we also thought that the way that Man City are going to come forwards against Spurs and be vulnerable on the counter was also going to play into the way Spurs like to attack. And that is exactly what happened. It was interesting to see Ange actually changed it up this week. And he employed Kulusevski on the right wing over Johnson, who I've been talking about over the last few weeks, has just not been getting involved in the game creatively on that right wing and picking up very good positions at all. And that allowed him to bring Maddison on as well and have him in the middle, having that extra creativity in the game for Spurs, allowing them to create chances. And that was how they really thrived. Kulusevski was incredible. He carries the ball with such pace, with such energy, and with such incision. The way he moves, it really caused Man City a lot of problems. Maddison's obviously with great creativity, and also he just burst into the box for that first goal. Really made some bursting runs, and it made Spurs have more of a dual threat from both flanks in this game. It was really nice to see them being able to create stuff down that right, which has been really lacking with Johnson over the last few weeks. I just don't think he's been picking up positions or really getting the ball in dangerous areas in that right wing to sort of create problems for the other teams. So that was a really astute tactical pickup from Ange to see that and switch it up. Also, I think Johnson is obviously got a lot of pace, great on the counter. So late in the game, brought him on when City were forced to be going forwards. And that's when he's at his strongest. And he did obviously manage to get on the end for a goal in the end. Pretty unbelievable game. Don't think anybody saw that scoreline coming. And I think people are a little bit too fast to write City off altogether. I think next week is a huge week for them at Liverpool. And that really could put a massive dent in their title aspirations. But on the other hand, City beat Liverpool next week. The gap's down to 5 points. And you're looking at that going, there's no gap at all. And if Man City can go on one of those runs they often do in the second half of the season, you can easily see them clawing back those points. So, yes, they're not looking the same old Man City that they have looked previously. But do you think they're out of the title race? I definitely don't. And I think next week is going to be crucial. If Liverpool can get the win, that can really kill off a lot of momentum from that City side. A draw sort of still leaves things a little bit in the balance, and a win for City really turns the tables a little bit there. So this is a real opportunity this season for Liverpool and Arsenal, with City slipping up repeatedly in the league. There is an opportunity for those teams to really push on and create a bit of a gap over them that might be difficult to overcome in the latter half of the season. G'day guys, just a quick note to say I'm currently sitting on 99 subscribers, and it would be great if you could just click subscribe and give me that last push to 100 subscribers. Like the video if you enjoy. Thanks very much. Bournemouth-Brighton, we did predict both teams to score. A nice green tick mark on the right there. That was a correct prediction for this week. Obviously a high-paced game, lots of transitions in that game. There were plenty of chances both ends throughout the game. And although Bournemouth did only manage to peg one back right at the end, they did have chances throughout the game. And we did think that was the way the game was going to be played. Brighton were going to take it to Bournemouth away from home, and they did so. João Pedro starting for Brighton. That was probably the thing everyone was most wanting to see, whether he would be starting for Brighton after doing the 20 minutes off the bench last week and picking up a goal and assist against City. And he looked fantastic. The pass into Mitoma for that goal was sensational. And it was really nice to see Hertzler starting both Jorginho Ruta and João Pedro, along with Welbeck and Mitoma. The front four that they have an unbelievable, just linkage between each other, like knowledge of each other's games. It was great to see them play together, and they just clicked immediately. It's obviously rare to see that sometimes when that sort of starting four hasn't really played together a lot this season. It shows they're coached very well by Hertzler. They really have some good attacking patterns that they've built into their play. And listening to João Pedro's interview after the game, he just commented on it. He said, "Yeah, I just knew where Mitoma was going to run. Like I know his play style. I know where he likes to go, and I just saw it and I played the ball straight away." So they've got a really good understanding in that front line. And I think Brighton are going to continue to score goals over the future weeks, and their attack are really key players that you should be looking out for in the upcoming weeks for sure. Southampton v Liverpool. Again, Salah to get a return was the prediction. Another green tick for us. Predicted that correct this week. Salah, however, did look like he was back to his old ways, being a lot less clinical than he has been this season. Taking his classic 3 chances to score a goal. Missed some good chances in that game. He probably could have had 4, maybe even 5 goals in that game with the amount of chances he had. I think the decision to captain Salah was really justified. I know we thought about it midweek, but when we heard that news about Southampton, Bednarek and Ramsdale being out, I think it was the clear and obvious choice to go with Salah as captain this week, especially if you didn't have Haaland in your team. And as expected, Southampton did give away goals. You could just see the lack of cohesion in their defence. This sort of must play out from the back at all costs attitude from Russell Martin. Look, I think it's great that they're playing out from the back, but as someone who's played at the back before, there's certain times where you don't roll that ball out, and you could see that it was just a lack of understanding between the defence. Stevens, I think it was, told McCarthy, "Yeah, roll the ball out." He rolls the ball out to I think it was midfield. I can't remember who he rolled it out to, but it was right on the edge of the box. The guy's facing the goalie. He's got 2 Liverpool players that closed him down straight away. And that is just not the place that you want. What is the point in roll? You've got the ball safe in the goalkeeper's hands. You can take your time. You can let your players move up the pitch. Liverpool drop back a little bit. Their press is not super high, super energetic at the moment. Take a little bit of time, roll the ball out into a little bit more space. There was no way of fast break. There was no need to quickly play that ball out there. And that's just a case of the defence and the goalkeeper not playing a lot together, not knowing when and where they should be rolling the ball out and who they should be rolling it out to. And Southampton, again, were just the cause of their own misery. They actually defended very well against Liverpool for large periods of the game. Especially the first sort of 60 minutes, really. There were only small portions of the game where Liverpool managed to find some gaps. And the rest of it was just Southampton giving the ball away. I think they do have quality within their team and they are able to play that style and play out from the back, but they just need to know when you don't play a pass to somebody. You don't play a pass to somebody facing their own goal on the edge of their box, surrounded by players. It's just not the thing to do. But yeah, like we said, we knew it would happen. We knew Southampton would struggle. We knew they'd give the ball away and give Liverpool chances. The hope was that Salah would be on the receiving end of those chances, and he certainly was. So great captaincy decision, really good return from Salah. And to be honest, a good win for Liverpool, but slightly fortunate. There were a couple of times where you did see them almost revert to a sort of little bit of the issues they had on the clock, where they did get caught a little bit too much in transition with their defence just fullbacks a little bit too high. Connor Bradley didn't have the best game. He wasn't quite always in the correct positions. He was getting caught out a little bit, attacking too high. But yeah, that's obviously a bit more gameplay required and a bit more understanding of the new Liverpool system. But yeah, otherwise Liverpool again go now 8 points clear at the top. Big news. Chelsea Leicester, the early kickoff. I'm sure we did expect goals in that game, and our prediction was Palmer to get a return, which I mean was very, very close to happening. Obviously getting cleared off the line by Madueke, basically. So it was close. It was unfortunate that Palmer didn't get that return. And Chelsea really, for the majority of the first half, really dominated Leicester, like dominated them, and they played this 4-1-4-1 press. And they had the duo that we've been talking about recently on the channel, that Maresca was talking about potentially putting Felix and Palmer in that midfield together. And I think a few Chelsea fans have been hoping to see that sort of highly attacking team, and it did happen. And I thought Felix played really well in that sort of almost left attacking midfield role, with Palmer more centrally and Madueke on the right, and Enzo really also playing attacking. It was a 4-1-4-1 essentially. Enzo was playing in that attacking midfield with Palmer, and Caicedo was playing a little bit deeper with Jackson up top. And yeah, I just thought like the technical ability then Chelsea had in the middle of the pitch with both Felix and Palmer was obviously really good. Like keeping possession was a lot easier for them. Like they were very, very good on the ball. And their press was great. Like the way they pressed with the four attacking midfielders, Leicester were really struggling to pass it through there. When they did manage to get it through, they did sort of catch Chelsea a couple of times in the middle of the field. They were left a little bit exposed. Caicedo was really having to do a lot of work there. He obviously did play excellently, but yeah, he did have quite a lot of work there. And Enzo really needed to sort of drop back in quickly and get back in line with the play. I thought Chelsea were very good the majority of the game. Like I said, maybe a few instances caught in that transition when Leicester broke through their press and managed to get it into the midfield and running at the Chelsea back four. But outside of that, they played fantastically well. And Nicholas Jackson, there we go, Jackson, I've put on that screen. His IQ is really improving under Maresca, and he almost reminded me in the last, especially in this game, but in the last few games, like of how Harry Kane used to play at Tottenham, where he used to drop deep and allow Son and others to run on in front of him. It doesn't quite have the same range of passing that Kane does, also not the same finishing, but what he does have is pace to also run in behind. So he's got the ability to sort of drop in, let Palmer run on behind. He has played some nice passes and through balls to Palmer, but then also be a danger running in behind. So the defenders have got to watch both ways for him, and that really can drag the centre-backs here and there and create spaces in the midfield and in the back line for others. Another thing that I thought was really interesting, and I think Maresca's spoken about it in some of his tactical interviews that he's given, is why you see Palmer drifting a little bit wider, and the movement of Caicedo and Enzo when that happens to create spaces for Chelsea. So what happens is, and you've seen, I think, a few times in the last couple of games, is Palmer's drifted a little bit out to the left wing. And then when that's happened, you've seen, and I probably should have put a picture up on the screen of this, either Caicedo or Enzo, whoever is closer to that left-hand side, almost pulls also towards that left-hand side, which forces the central midfielders to come with them and leaves a gap in the centre of the field for where the other centre mid, say it's Enzo that's coming along from the far side of the pitch, comes into the centre and picks up the ball. In fact, it's normally the other way around. Normally what happens is Enzo follows Palmer out to that sort of left side. Caicedo comes across for the right, picks up the ball right in the centre. And he's just had some really fantastic range of passing from Chelsea. He's been hitting diagonals, he's been hitting through balls, and he's been picking up that ball in so much space in the midfield. And it's really tactical from Maresca, the way that he pulls a few of his players over to that side. And that sort of gives the room for then Caicedo to quickly nip into the middle, receive the pass, and turn with space in the middle of the field. So if you guys were wondering why you do see Palmer sort of drifting a little bit wide left, that is one of the reasons, and it is a tactical setup from Maresca. And it's the way that Chelsea have scored goals by getting him on the ball in that and then looking for a through ball. And then what happens when he does do that is Palmer will often make those darting runs through from the left, and Caicedo will try and pick him or Jackson or Madueke out as they're running forwards when he picks up the ball there. So super interesting tactical setups from Chelsea. I think they've got a lot of different tactics that they've been employing this year, and I think Maresca's been fantastic in really coaching that team well, and improving a lot of their players. You can see them improving, including Nicholas Jackson specifically, as well as Caicedo and Enzo, and Lavia as well in that midfield. Arsenal Nottingham Forest. This was the Arsenal we've been waiting to see, to be honest. I thought Arsenal were really excellent. They dominated the game really versus Forest, and they didn't give Forest a lot of opportunities. There were a couple of times that they did get caught on the counter, and I do think that it was to do with Declan Rice not being starting in that middle role. And as we said before the game, I expected Saka to play, and I said Declan Rice was probably a 50-50 whether he started. And that's why I gave myself the green tick on the right. Saka to get a return, Arsenal to get caught on the counter if Rice was unavailable. I think Arsenal did get caught on the counter a couple of times by Forest. It just didn't quite lead to the goal. And I think you could tell that it was due to it being a bit different, not having Rice in the middle. He didn't quite have the athleticism in there. In some of those motions with the pace that Nottingham Forest have on the counter. But Arsenal, I thought, were incredible going forwards. Odegaard was obviously a real key part of that Arsenal team. And he's really important to breaking down defences, especially when they're sitting back against Arsenal. The amount of games Arsenal have played in the last few where it's basically been a struggle for them to cut through these teams. And it's all been reliant on give it Saka and do something. I mean, it still is heavily reliant on Saka. But Odegaard does also create another option. But you do see a lot of Arsenal's play going down that right-hand side. And what I thought was really interesting is Jurrien Timber was picking up some fantastic positions inside the box, almost in that sort of Rico Lewis right-back role that Man City played. He was sort of inverting inside Saka, getting into those little spaces on the corners of the boxes, receiving the ball, had a couple of chances, assists, shots. And I think that he might be an interesting FPL option going forwards. I thought he played really well, and I think A, due to the good performance, B, due to Ben White injury, at 5.5 mil in that Arsenal defence. If you are looking to bring in a defender at the moment, I would say Jurrien Timber's a really excellent shout for Arsenal, because it did look like they were pretty solid at the back again, and they were sort of getting back to the form that we're expecting of them this season, with a lot of their players back from injury. Nottingham Forest side, look, I wouldn't worry too much about them. It's a tough game against Arsenal. They didn't start a lot. Chris Wood started on the bench. I think must have been tired after his exploits for New Zealand. And yeah, I think Arsenal just played very well and were just too much for Forest in this game. But I'm still big on Forest. I think they're a good defensive line, great transition team. Look out for them going forwards. I'm sure they'll continue to do well. And then one of the big games of the game week that we were all looking forward to talking tactics about, I'm sure, and knowing what assets we wanted for FPL out of those teams and those games. Ipswich v Man United. Man United set up in that 3-4-3 that we had discussed. Amorim setting up in. Bruno did start in that right forward role, but there were a few surprises in the starting lineup. He started Rashford up top in the middle, Garnacho left forward, and Ahmad at right wing back. I think it was Delo at left wing back. And Ahmad had a great game, actually. I think he still has some work that he needs to do positionally as a defender. He doesn't quite know the spacing, how far to be away from the player, when to step up, when to sort of drop in line. And that comes with like experience of playing in those fullback roles. And I'm sure he will pick it up quickly. I think playing with a back four, if you've got leaders in that middle, it really helps as a fullback. Like I used to play fullback myself, and it really helps when you've got leaders in the back four in the middle talking. I'm sure he will pick that up quite quickly in that role. And yes, some of the things that I saw in this first game, and I think Amorim's certainly still working out who he wants in what positions. You could tell by the amount of subs he made, and he was trying different things. He was obviously trying to win the game and go forwards and be attacking. And I'm sure that was good. It's like the Man United fans, that's what they want to see. They want to see their side on the front foot, going forwards again, playing aggressive football, and they certainly did try. There were obviously some concerns as to how they pressed in the formation. I don't think United really understood how their shape should be in the press, who triggers the press, who should be going. And that is like that's going to come with more time playing in this formation. He's only had, a couple of days really with all the players when they got back after international break to work it out. But the one thing that I did see that I thought was really exciting was the way that they played those sort of inside forwards, Bruno and Garnacho, around Rashford. And he's clearly said to them to sort of play quick passes, try and get it in behind to Rashford and Garnacho running through balls ASAP. And that really suits Bruno with his technical ability, his fast passes, his little intricate passes. And he also runs on past defences frequently. So I do think that is a good setup for Bruno Fernandes. It is also a great setup for Garnacho and Rashford to really exploit the pace. So going forwards, that United attack, it could be dangerous. And if Amorim can get them clicking, I think it's exciting times for Man United fans. I do think it might take a little bit of time for them to work it out defensively, and in the short term, they might be conceding a few goals just because of that. But I think once they can work that out, if they can get that attack clicking, they could be quite dangerous. United, so that's positive signs I thought in that game, despite the 1-1 draw. Garnacho and Bruno potential shouts going forwards. Everton Brentford. Really the red card spoiled that game. I don't really like to talk too much about games where there's been a red card because, tactically things change completely at that stage. I think 40th minute or something, Norgard got sent off. Everton really just showed their lack of cutting edge, like their inability to score 90 minutes against Brentford with 10 men just shows their poor attack at the moment. And amazingly, I did go for Brentford to keep their first clean sheet of the season. And they did, with 10 men against Everton, keep their first clean sheet of the season. So, there is really, if you are playing against Everton, those are the sort of defenders that you'd like to target. I think next week it's actually United. So, another sort of opportunity for Everton to maybe get at a defence that's still trying to work things out. But I wouldn't back against the United defence, keeping them out next week. Probably a good game for United to have to sort of sort out their defensive line and work on some things. Fulham v Wolves. Wow. Wasn't expecting that at all. Could have been completely different. Jimenez missed a chance from half a yard. I don't know. I'm not quite sure how he missed. And again, like Wolves didn't particularly have a lot of possession. I think it was probably around 60-40 Fulham possession. But the class of Cunha just showed, really. He again scored some magnificent goals. And it's a struggle for me because he's obviously the centerpiece of that Wolves side, creatively, goal scoring, on penalties. He's everything for that Wolves side. But I'm not quite seeing it still for Wolves. I think I mean, I didn't edit that last bullet point. Actually, ain't no basically wing and must buy from prior week. But yeah, I think like Nuri still playing in like this super high wing back role. Basically, he's playing as a winger. They're playing like a similar to United, like 3-4, well 3-4-2-1, almost almost same as United really. With them sitting into a back five in defence. But Ait Nuri's like flying up that wing to basically make it like a 3-2-3-1 almost. But again, I'm just not big on Wolves like creating chances. Cunha's scoring from not easy chances at the moment. And I guess it's just they do have good fixture run. Going forwards, they've got Bournemouth, Everton, West Ham, Ipswich over the next 4. Or if you're looking for games where you want to score goals, I would say Bournemouth is a good one. Everton, I know Sean Dyche's got them defensively solid, but they're not a great team. You're going to have you might be able to have a little bit more of the ball in that game being Wolves because Everton are a lot more direct. They might be able to create chances. West Ham have been really poor in transition. Ipswich obviously conceding goals. So those next 4 games are really like great games for Cunha. And I think like if you've got him in your team, you want to be hanging on to him over those 4 games. You can see him getting returns. If you don't have him in your team, unpopular opinion from me is I wouldn't buy him in. And I just think because there are so many great options for strikers. And it's crazy to say that after him getting, I think, 12 and 16 points in the last 2 games. But I just feel like it's from such difficult chances that I'm not sure that it can continue. But Wolves may prove me wrong, and I've been wrong before, so it could happen. And we didn't expect this one, obviously, with the predictions. So, yeah, great win for Wolves, 4-1. Really important for them to get some points on the board and takes them out of the relegation zone as well into 17th now. Villa v Palace. We did a bit of a deep dive on Villa in the live stream, and I just wanted to run through it for you guys that didn't see that because I think Villa suffer from similar problems, and even in the Palace game, still suffered from these sort of problems as well. And it was that what we talked about was they lost Douglas Luiz to Juventus this season, sold to Juventus. And Boubacar Kamara was also out through injury since the start of the season. So last season they had those two in holding midfield or in central midfield. And what would happen generally is Kamara would drop into the back 3, get the ball, and sort of play out from there, helping Villa to sort of maintain possession and move the ball out more productively from the defence. And David Luiz would be very possession-based midfielder. He's playing sort of hundreds of passes side to side to side to side, looking for an opportunity to then go in and supply a Watkins, for example, once they've shifted the defence side to side and see an opening. Now, what they've had this year is they've had Tielemans and Onana in there, and Onana again was also injured this week, so they had Tielemans and Barkley in there, who are both much more attacking midfielders. And what we've seen this season from Tielemans is if you see his stats in comparison to David Luiz, has probably played like 100 less passes than David Luiz, and that's because he's looking for more incisive passes more quickly. And actually, that's resulted in Villa turning the ball over more frequently, having lower possession. And actually, those more incisive passes have not actually been more productive for Villa in terms of going forwards and creating chances. what's worked better for them has been shifting around the defence and slowly then being able to break down once the defence is moving side to side. So what we've seen is that they've turned over the ball, and then in the situations where, for example, they're chasing a game or they're looking to win a game, and Morgan Rogers comes out in that attacking midfield role, you can see in this picture. You can see in this picture here, you got Watkins at the top and Duran at the top left, and Duran on the ball, and Duran on the bottom left. Watkins here, this was against Spurs at 1-1, loses the ball, and Spurs just this big red circle here just have this whole massive space to run into, and this happened repeatedly when Rodgers came out of that team, and Spurs and Villa were still not really controlling the possession, and Spurs were just running through that midfield. And honestly, right here, Watkins gives the ball away. It goes into Kulusevski, Johnson, Solanke. They play a couple of passes together, slot through Solanke, scores the goal for 2-1. And that's been a real problem for Villa. And that balance in the midfield, they've just lost a little bit. And I think hopefully that it will help once Boubacar Kamara hopefully comes back in the next couple of weeks. And he'll be able to drop into that back three. The other thing which has been also sort of reducing their ability to maintain possession is previously you had Konsa in that centre-back role, and he's quite good on the ball and coming out with the ball, and him, Kamara, and normally Pau Torres, those three are then able to sort of distribute the ball out. Douglas Luiz is there, and they're able to retain that possession better. Now with the injuries that they've had, Konsa shifted out to right back because of Matty Cash's injuries and some other injuries. And then the centre-backs have been Diego Carlos and Pau Torres. Diego Carlos is just not quite as good on the ball and playing out from the back. And I think he's a good defender, physically very strong. But he just hasn't been as good as Konsa is playing out from the back. So that means that it's been more difficult for Villa. They've struggled a little bit more going forwards. And that's been doubled up by the loss of Diaby as well, who they sold, I think, for about 50 mil at the end of the season on the right wing. And Bailey actually had a bit of a better game against Palace, but just hasn't been the creative spark that Diaby was last year up that right flank. Neither's McGinn, and they haven't really been able to find anything there. I think Diaby had about 14 goal involvement last season. So that's been another loss. For them. And I think Emre tried to do something about it this week by implementing some more attacking fullbacks. So Maatsen came in for Dean this week, who I thought that was quite surprising because Dean has actually been playing really well and has been managing to get forwards quite a lot. But Maatsen's sort of thought of as a super attacking fullback. So I think he looked to sort of try and get something a little bit more out of that left-hand side. He had McGinn on the left and Bailey on the right to start. I just wanted to get a little bit more out of that. I think eventually he ended up bringing on Luca Dean later in the game and Matty Cash also in the fullback roles because I think it just didn't quite work out for them with Bogard and Maatsen. And Palace just caught them on the counter. They just caught them on the counter, and Ismail Assar was just too fast for all of them. So I think that's sort of what I see as been the problem for Villa this year. And then when they're trying to chase the game and Duran and Watkins are playing together, it's just not sort of worked for them. And Rodgers has been a real key for them in linking the play in between the midfield and the forward line. And like when he comes out of the game, it's just a little bit more difficult for them, I would say. Not a great result for Villa, 2-2 against Palace, who've been really poor this year and just have been sort of no attacking threat, and especially without Eze and Elise. Obviously, Elise gone, but Eze as well. Being chosen to, although he said he was fit, was chosen by Oli Glasner to not play. Very good result for Palace, 2-2. Moving on then, that was sort of the tactical analysis that we went through. Now we're going to go on to sort of the stats for this for so far this game week, the exclusion of the Villa West Ham game, and then who I think are the key transfers in based off tactics, stats, form, and fixtures over the next 4 game weeks. And we'll go through defenders analysis, midfielders analysis, forwards analysis, and my personal player picks for game week 13, as well as who I've already transferred in this game week, literally after the game finished on Saturday, on the weekend. I transferred this guy in. So in the defenders, you can see I've read it out Trent Alexander-Arnold. Even if he's fit, I just think he's too expensive to be going for. I think the Liverpool defence has been good this year. I know they sort of reverted back to an old Liverpool this week against Southampton a little bit, getting caught on the counter, but they have been a good defence. But I think if I was to go for a Liverpool defender, it would be a Canate just for the cheaper price point at that sort of 5.4, 5.5. I think he might have gone up now to 5.5, is he? No, still 5.4. Yeah, and then just some highlights, talking points. Luca Dean obviously lost his place to Maatsen this week. Perhaps that's something that Unai Emery is going to use more going forwards, and I think over the Christmas break you will see some rotation for Luca Dean. So for me, that although he's looked brilliant for Villa, that just sort of drops him down a little bit as an option. You really want to have people that are, especially at the back at the moment, with it just being a bit difficult to pick defenders. You want really someone that's nailed that you don't have to worry about over this Christmas break period. Guardiola, I think, obviously nailed for Man City, just Man City being poor defensively this season. But for me, Guardiola is quite a nice option just because of his attacking potential. He is a little bit expensive, so if you don't have the money, there are obviously some other options here in green for you. In the case of a Lewis Hall or a Ryan Aït-Nouri. Now, I think Lewis Hall, I think he's got a few nice fixtures coming up. Palace and Leicester in the next 4, obviously split by Liverpool and Brentford, which are not particularly easy fixtures. But then they've got Ipswich after that as well. So I think he does have, 3 of the next 5 quite nice defensive fixtures. And if you do have a few other defenders in there as well, he's quite nice for like a little rotation with some of the other defenders. Particularly a Guardiola, to be honest. Ryan Aït-Nouri, Wolves have obviously got great fixtures, really, really lovely fixtures over the next few game weeks. He's playing a super attacking role. I don't see Wolves keeping a lot of clean sheets, even in a lot of these fixtures, other than maybe an Everton in game week 14. But I just think Aït-Nouri's got so much potential for picking up attacking returns, and if he even picks up one, that's good enough for the defenders at the moment, especially at the price point of 4.7 or 8 million. 4.8 million. It's quite nice, and you probably want to jump on him now before he continues to go up in price. Diego Dalot for me, just at the moment, just a little wait and see for United. See how they go under this new system. Just make sure that he's first choice in there under Amorim, over a Mazraoui, over like a Ahmad, etc. Is Dalot going to be that first choice wing back for them? I think Everton's a good game week next week, so if you got him, hold him for sure. But I wouldn't really taking a punt. I would probably not go into them for this week. But yeah, I think Dalot's a nice option. I do think he's a nice option. I just think United need to get their defence together a little bit. I think Arsenal will be a really difficult fixture for them in game week 14. And I added in a few, I normally just show like the top, I think it's 30 defenders, but I just added in a few who I thought were interesting talking points. I think Gabriel, Arsenal have showed that their defence is sort of coming back to where they were. Both him and a Timber, I think, are really nice options. If you're looking to save a bit of extra money, I don't mind Timber over this Xmas period. I think he's probably going to play a lot of games. Having seen him play this week, I thought he was excellent. Obviously the risk is Champions League and midweek games, causing rotation. But Arsenal have obviously got a lot of injuries, and they might have to play the majority of those games there. And the other guys I thought were just some interesting talking points. Ferdy Kadioglu of Brighton, I think, obviously missed the game this week because of injury, toe injury, and he missed the Turkey international in midweek. But if he can come back from injury for Brighton, I think he could be a really exciting pick. I do think Brighton have a really, really nice fixture run coming up. You can see even their next 4 weeks: Southampton, Fulham, Leicester, Crystal Palace, pretty nice from a defensive standpoint. And I think Ferdy Kadioglu has some really great attacking potential as well going forwards. There was someone actually who commented on one of my posts saying they were thinking about going for Ferdy. And I wasn't quite, obviously, like with the injury last week, wasn't sure he'd be fit. But I think if he does come back and you hear in the press conference next week that he might be fit for Brighton, he's definitely somebody to consider. At 4.5 million, quite an attacking defender with some really lovely fixtures. So yeah, I think Kadioglu is definitely someone to think about going forwards. And Alex Moreno, just Nottingham Forest. I think they got Ipswich, they got Man United. 2 out of 4 nice-ish games, and then you're starting to get towards I think it's game week 19 where Forest's fixtures start to become really nice. It's got Everton, Wolves, Liverpool, then Southampton, Bournemouth, Brighton, Fulham, and that sort of run of 6-7 games is quite nice for Forest again. And yeah, we'd really consider if you want to potentially go into like a Moreno or an Aina now. Might be a nice time to go into somebody like that. I thought that's an interesting option. Going forwards, midfield, 2 main guys, 3 main guys. Salah, Palmer, Saka. I actually probably should have Saka on this front page over Palmer. I actually think he is the main guy that you want to be having right now. He's so critical to all the Arsenal play. They're always looking for Saka. He's always involved in everything that they do. And that no team's found a way of making him like a sideline of any games. He's always a crucial part to all of the games, and always heavily involved. So I think, if I'm honest, Saka is a must-have in the team right now. And I think he'll continue to return points as we go forwards. Palmer, I've got to be honest, right now, if I was wildcarding in 13, I would have Nicholas Jackson, and I would think about whether I would have Cole Palmer. I would think about it. And I think that's a huge call from me, but not that I don't think that Palmer's a good asset, but I really think that Jackson is a really nice asset up front. I probably have them both. And I'm not really big on double ups, which is why I'm actually a bit torn between Jackson and Palmer if I was to pick one at the moment. I just think Jackson is doing a lot for Chelsea at the moment. Is really doing a lot for Chelsea, and teams are starting to work, not work it out, but they're slowly starting to sort of put a couple more men on Palmer, make him like sort of drift out wide to create space for other players, because that's Chelsea's tactical plans. When Palmer's getting a lot of attention, he drifts out slightly wider, and then the centre midfielders come into the centre and try and pick up the ball in a bit of space, and then he'll try and dart in behind. So teams are trying to do that and trying to make Palmer a bit less influential on the games. And I think you saw that from that Arsenal game, from when Thomas Partey started man marking him. So I just wonder whether other teams will pick that up going forwards. I think Leicester did it for a little bit of the game, but they weren't as really effective as Arsenal. But you did see Palmer drift a little bit out wide. Outside of that, a few talking points in the midfield. Brennan Johnson, I think, is a sell. If you have him, you should get rid of him. I know he picked up a goal, but he came off the bench, and he's really picked up some awful positionings and not looked great over the last few weeks. I don't expect him to continue to score goals. And to be honest, I thought Spurs played so well with that formation that I wonder whether they'll continue with Kulusevski on the right and Maddison in the middle, and fitting them both into the team going forwards. So Johnson could miss out going forwards. Adama Traore again, sell. He's sort of out of the Fulham starting lineup at the moment for Reece Nelson, who's been playing really well on the wings with Iwobi and Smith Rowe. And then a flood of orange. I think there's a ton of great midfielder options at the moment. And that's where everyone's going to be looking over the next few weeks. There's going to be moves from Fernandes, moves from Mbeumo, moves from Rodgers. I think a lot of those guys are going to be coming out of the team. And there are going to be people like Jorginho Ruta, who played alongside João Pedro, which I wasn't expecting, who I think is now a really nice Brighton opportunity. If you don't maybe have a João Pedro or Welbeck, or if you want to double up on Brighton in this period, just because they're such cheap assets, the double up is not as painful over that period of time. Dejan Kulusevski, who I think has been incredible for Spurs, and then moving out onto that right wing, if he continues to play there, he's going to be more of a goal threat as well as an assist threat from there. He's someone I'm definitely looking to get in my team, potentially for an Mbeumo in maybe game week 14, just because I've already made my transfer for this week. Mohamed Kudus of West Ham, I thought prior to his suspension and red card sending off, he was a real driving force in that West Ham team, a very important player for them. If he can start returning to that sort of form in the team, then he would be really important for them going forwards. Mitoma, again, another Brighton asset. I think Mitoma I'm a little bit less big on than Ruta, just because of it was nice João Pedro passed him the ball, but I have felt that Brighton don't pass him the ball that much, and he's so efficient from his actions, but he doesn't have a lot of actions because people don't pass the ball to him. I don't understand. If you watch Brighton games, it just seems to go the other way or to somebody else, and every time Mitoma gets the ball, he does something good. But yeah, I like him. I'd struggle to put him back in my team. But he did get the goal this week, so definitely a food for thought. Bruno Fernandes and Alejandro Garnacho, I think, as I mentioned, the United way that they're setting up with those two as inside forwards and Rashford as the striker could be a super dangerous weapon, with Garnacho, Rashford, Bruno all running in behind, all linking up with short, intricate passes. Yeah, I think that could, if that gets clicking, could be very fruitful for Man United going forwards. And then James Maddison, if he can get back into that Spurs team with Kulusevski on the right wing and him bursting through into the box a little bit more, could also be someone to think about as maybe an Mbeumo replacement or a Fernandes replacement if you're looking to move out of him after next week against Everton. Yeah, I think Maddison could be an interesting pick going forwards. Forwards analysis. And guys, if you are enjoying this content, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I'm actually on 99 subscribers at the moment. It would be great to get up to 100 subscribers after this video. So if you could subscribe, that would be great. And like the video, it will really help my content get out there. If you enjoy this and you want some more good content going forwards. Forwards analysis, Nicholas Jackson, I've obviously talked about him quite a bit. I think a really nice option if you don't have Palmer, or potentially even if you do, going forwards for Chelsea's nice fixture run. Evan Ilson is somebody I also wanted to talk about. Bournemouth, like going a little bit under the radar, scored 4 goals for Bournemouth so far this season. And has a nice fixture run. Wolves, Tottenham, Ipswich, West Ham. There's goals in all of those games. Good statistics, good fixtures. Obviously, the spearhead of the Bournemouth attack, so tactics are a tick. Bournemouth are attacking sides. They are scoring goals. And in good form. So tactics, stats, forms, fixtures, all a tick for Evan Ilson. That's got him in my shortlist so far. Other strikers, and there are a lot of strikers to talk through. I would probably say top of my list right now is João Pedro. He just had a price rise to 5.6 million, but he is just amazing pricing on penalties. Talisman of the Brighton team, as Hersler mentioned, key player, great fixtures, amazing form, obviously tactically very important to the team, and great stats. 0.73, the fourth highest non-penalty expected goals and assists, and he's also on penalties. So yeah, I just think he's ticking all those boxes for me, and at the cheapest price of all of them, I think he's a must-buy. Wissa remains in my shortlist. I just love Wissa. I just think he's got incredible football IQ, more so than most players in the Premier League. His obviously non-penalty expected goals statistics is crazy. He's been in great form. He scored 7 goals, 1 assist. Tactically, again, Brentford's super attacking team. Wissa at the head of the snake, playing up front in a number 9 role. Only caveat being he's not on pens, but that wouldn't put me off. 6.1 million striker that's scored 7 goals so far this season. He's also a buy from me. Final section of this statistics breakdown, and these are my player picks for the week. Unsurprisingly, with the way I've probably talked about all of these guys, I think Nicholas Jackson, Wissa, and João Pedro, if you're looking at strikers, are just fantastic options for the next few game weeks. I think they're going to continue to score. I think Wissa will score regardless of the opposition, just for the way he finds positionally, the way he plays, and the way Brentford play. I think he'll continue to score. Jackson has got assist and goal potential now. His movement's been way more like a top tier striker. He's really learning a lot under Maresca. He's got great link-up play with Palmer. I think they've got 11 goal-assist combos together, which is the 4th most ever for Chelsea. Still a bit of a way behind the old Drogba Lampard. I think they have like 36 or something. But they're not far off second spot. I think it's only got like 15 or 16 link-ups. So really good understanding there. I think Chelsea are playing well. Jackson's a crucial part of that. João Pedro, talisman of the Brighton team, amazing fixtures, great form, just goal and assist in his last 2 games in probably 80 minutes of football, and just tactically just such a key player, leader in the dressing room, really important in all of Brighton's play, excellent movement, and great form fixtures, so ticks all 4 boxes. Wissa we just spoke about, obviously great IQ, attacking team, good fixtures, great stats, only caveat not on pens. And then Kulusevski I think is a really, really pick that you should really think about going forwards. If he moves out onto that right wing and starts getting involved in more potential goal threats, he's going to be a very good pick going forwards. He's been unbelievable for quite a few weeks for Spurs, been a real driving force of their attack, driving that ball forwards. Creatively amazing, technically brilliant on the ball. And I just think he's going to make a big difference to Spurs if he does play on that right wing and they keep then maybe having Maddison in the middle, or they go with the 2 more defensive midfielders. But I think it's important that Spurs have a bit more creativity and attack from both flanks, and I think Kulusevski definitely does that more than Johnson. So those are my picks for this week. And as you can see, or you could have seen on the previous slides, I am now into the top 600k at 565k. My team, if I just show you how we did this week, pretty good game week. I've still got Hull to go in the final game, so hoping for a Newcastle clean sheet. 69 points so far this game week. Green arrow to 560k. And I did actually make 1 transfer already this game week, which was João Pedro in Jefferson out, and I just had 1 million in the bank, and Jefferson was at 4.5, and João Pedro was at 5.5, and pretty much immediately after the Brighton game finished, to be honest, like I saw João Pedro get taken off, and I just waited for the post-match conference to see that he was fine, no injuries, and then I transferred him in. And then the next day he went up in price. So he's now at 5.6 million, but I wanted to make sure I got him in because I would not have been able to afford the extra 0.1 million. If not, I'm very happy that I've got him in for Southampton at home next week. So this is what my team will be looking like next week, and it will be Flecken, Guardiola, Gabriel Hall, Saka and Bumo, Salah and Palmer, and then Wood, Watkins and João Pedro. I think that's how it will most likely stay. Haven't given too much thought to captain, vice captain yet. There is a small bit inside of me which says captain João Pedro, but I actually think Salah against City could also cause them a lot of issues, as we saw from Spurs. Thanks again, guys, for watching this. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you did enjoy this video. Let's help me hit 100 subscribers. I'm currently on 99, so it would be great to hit that 100 after this video. And hopefully keep progressing this channel up towards 500 subscribers, which will be the main target going forwards. Once again, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great week, and look out and subscribe to make sure you stay up to date with all of my content that will come out later this week. Thanks, guys. Have a great week.